John Jones and Stipe Miocic may be the two greatest heavyweight fighters of all time, and they clashed in a title fight this past weekend. This is what you need to know. I am McCarthy Joel, and special guest James Donahue joining us later on, and this is the Ultimate Fighting Podcast. Over the weekend, John Jones and Stipe Miocic had a heavyweight title fight that ended in a round 3 TKO by John Jones. It was a very one-sided dominant performance by John. He hit him with a spinning back kick to the liver, and it really just shut him down. Fight was done there. And Stipe, as for what goes for him next, he's 42 years old, and he's looking to retire. And James Donahue.
How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Good to be on the show.
Yeah. What do you think is next for John Jones? Are we looking at a Tom Aspinall, Alex Pereira super fight? How do you see this?
I mean, he made it clear he's only doing super fights, right? I don't think he's fighting Tom. Dana's not going to let him fight Tom because he wants to protect him. He's going to vacate the belt, and I think it's either going to be Pereira or some other big super fight.
Do you think it's a possibility that Francis Ngannou could come on the scene out of the PFL and maybe return to the UFC or have a cross-promotion event where John and Francis finally get the fight that they wanted?
Possibly, but probably not. I think the whole reason Francis left was because he couldn't figure out a contract with Dana White, so there's bad blood between those two. So I don't know. If they do work out a contract, that'd be a good fight to watch, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I would love to see that, we never got it with John's suspensions and leaving the scene and testing positive for steroids. We never got to see that happen when Francis had his title run. But it is a fight that I think the fans would want to see, and I think Dana would be willing to do it if John wants to do it.
It's interesting. The fight people want to see is John Jones versus Tom Aspinall, but they're not going to set it up because either they want to protect Tom or they want to protect John. Either one, they're not going to set it up.
Yeah, those are two very big superstars that would be an insane fight to have in the beginning.
They're equally matched. They're two superstars, but they're equally matched. Both can beat each other. I don't think John Jones is going to get beaten by anybody else. He's probably just going to put Pereira to sleep. He's going to choke him out or something. He's not going to swing with him because Pereira is too powerful. So I think him versus Tom will be the matchup, but they're not going to do it.
Yeah, that would be, I mean, they both technically do have one official UFC loss. John's was a disqualification due to a 12-6 elbow against Matt Hamill. And Tom Aspinall was in his first fight with Curtis Blades. He sustained a knee injury in the first round.
So yeah, those are two
controversial losses.
Two losses that really weren't losses. It was like disqualification and an injury. So yeah, I consider them both undefeated. I think most people do.
I would consider Tom undefeated because he came back and avenged that loss with a almost 60-second knockout in Curtis Blades for his interim title fight.
Yeah, he's the man. He's been knocking everybody out in the first round.
He's got insane speed for a heavyweight, and I think that's the perfect storm for John. So,
who did he knock out before that? Pavlovich, right?
Yeah, Sergey Pavlovich.
Yeah, he knocked out Sergey out cold.
He had I think it was an Americana arm twister against Alexander Volkov, and he had another submission, which I'm not sure who it was against.
Yeah, heavyweight's nothing. It's Aspinall's game, I think.
Yeah, I think that's his division. He's the champion, and I'd be happy to see John fight him, or I'd be happy to see Aspinall come in and fight someone else for the undisputed title.
I agree.
And I don't know if you've seen this yet, but I think it's December 7th. We have a flyweight title fight against Kai Asakura and Alexandre Pantoja, the current champion. Kai Asakura is making his UFC debut in this. We rarely have seen this in recent years where someone makes their debut in a title fight.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I would expect Pantoja to mop the floor with him if it's his. Where's he coming from? I never heard of this guy.
He's coming out of Japan. He fought in the Rizin Fighting Federation. It is it's like an Asian fighting ring. It's kind of big out there, but it's obviously not comparable to the UFC when you're making money because worldwide they're the largest.
Yeah, I don't know. I think flyweights, there's not a whole lot of competition in flyweight regardless, but I don't know if you could take a guy from a different league and make his UFC debut a title fight.
Yeah, I would like to agree with that. I think
it's sort of disrespectful to Pantoja because, like, what's he supposed to do? He's fighting these guys that have never fought in the UFC before.
Yeah, I mean,
it's kind of like, what has he worked for?
And then we have another guy that's a UFC contender who just beat the last guy who lost to Pantoja, which is Kai Kara France, who just beat Steve Erceg. Steve Risek lost to Pantoja in May, I believe, in a controversial loss, but Kai Kara-France went in there and finished him in the first round. So I think that's, like, he's deserving of the title fight before Kai Asakura is, due to the fact that Kai hasn't fought in the UFC yet, even though he's a very promising undefeated fighter and prospect, and he's young.
You got to earn it.
Yeah,
I mean, look at MVP. MVP is well established in Bellator and everything else, but it's not like they're going to give him a title fight right away. You know, you got to go in and prove yourself, prove your worth in the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it is, and especially because we've seen these guys come over like Michael Chandler, and then MVP, or Michael Venom Page, as other people might know him. They were really champions, dominant people in Bellator, and they came over to the UFC and didn't find that much success. I think that there really is a skill ceiling in the UFC that is hard to match. You can't really compete with some of the guys in there, especially some of the foreign guys are really, really talented.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking of Michael Chandler, how about that fight last weekend? Entertaining.
That was great. Yeah, that was an interesting move to throw Oliveira down on the floor.
He did it last fight too, though. So
yeah,
he's entertaining. He's
an older guy, but I have respect for him. He's entertaining. He's doing his best to make it out there for a title fight. He's looking for that Conor McGregor fight, a name that I'm sure everyone knows.
I don't even think he's out there for a title fight. I think he's just out to make money and be a showman, because you know, and like he was just showing strength, picking Oliveira up and dropping him on his back. Like, obviously you don't want to drop onto your back with a skilled submission artist already on you, but he's doing it just to make it more interesting. So a lot of respect for Chandler there.
Yeah, and moving up to the welterweight division, Shavkat Rakhmonov and Bilal Muhammad had a welterweight title fight booked for the same actually night as Alexandre Pantoja and Kai Asakura, which was December 7th. But Bilal Muhammad, the current welterweight champion, pulled out due to a bone infection. He's out for a couple, I think 6 weeks, he said. It would be a 6-week layover, but Shavkat Rakhmonov, he took a fight against another undefeated prospect, Ian Gary, which is going to be the war of the year.
That's an interesting fight. And I think they both agreed to make it a good fight. They're not going to wrestle too much. They're just going to swing. So
yeah, and I would love to see that. They're two very, very talented guys. Shavkat Rakhmonov is coming out of Kazakhstan. He's got everything under his belt. He's finished every single opponent, and he's defeated all his opponents. Ian Gary, on the other hand, has very, very good submission skills and knockout power, but he doesn't have the finish rate that Shavkat has, but he still is an undefeated prospect who's really
I'm an Ian Gary fan. I think his last couple of fights have been pretty boring, but the one against Neil Magny, I mean, that was dominant. He knocked him down in the first round with leg kicks, right?
Yeah, that was very, very talented.
Yeah, he's
showed everyone what he's made of.
He's skilled. That's going to be a good fight.
And people I think are sleeping on his ability for submissions, because he's trains with maybe the greatest submission artist of all time, Charles Oliveira, and is really, really great friends with him. They work together often. He's in Brazil a lot. He's an Ireland native, but he's often in Brazil training, really working on that Brazilian jiu-jitsu to compete with these guys that have the wrestling, and they use Dagestani combat sambo or other stuff out of Russia that is just like really high level and hard to compete with, but he makes it work, and I respect that.
What do we think for predictions? 2 undefeated guys, same skill set. Who are you going with?
To be honest, it's hard to choose here. Shavkat Rakhmonov has showed that he's very talented and no man is a match for him, but Ian Gary has showed how to persevere. He's just dominated every opponent in every aspect. Even if he hasn't knocked them out or whatever it was, he's not doing it in the most entertaining way in some fights, but he's dominating his opponents. He's not letting them win. So I would like to say if someone's going to lose by submission or if someone's going to win by submission or decision, it's definitely going to be Ian Gary. But if we're looking at that knockout, which is what they said they want to look for, that stand bang kind of swing, I think I'm going to take Shavkat Rakhmonov.
I'm looking at Shavkat personally, because if they are going to stand and bang, Ian's got better striking than Shavkat, I think. However, I don't know if that's what they're going to do, because when you look at the last fight Ian Gary had against MVP, it was a super close bout. They were on the ground the whole time, and Ian Gary was getting tagged on the feet, so he had to go down on the ground. And he didn't really do much down there. Like, I know he's got jiu-jitsu skills, but he didn't put any submission attempts. He just kind of sat there and looked for ground control.
Yeah,
I mean, you got to protect the undefeated record, but I think if it goes to the ground, I think we're seeing a Shavkat submission personally.
Really?
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I think on the feet, Ian Gary wins. On the ground, Shavkat's got him.
That's interesting. It would be awesome to see another Shavkat standing submission if that was able to happen in this fight.
Yeah, standing submissions are awesome. Think back to John Jones and Lyoto Machida. That was ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable.
Out cold.
Yeah, but then you have guys in the middleweight division moving up another class. Khamzat Chimaev. I mean, talk about that performance against Robert Whittaker.
Disgusting. Poor Bobby Knuckles. Oh my God, his teeth.
Yeah. His
teeth got lodged back into his mouth because of that. The power that it wasn't even around his neck. He had him in a rear naked choke, but it was kind of just on the jaw. Is that jaw crank? I guess.
Yeah, face crank.
Face crank. Yeah, that was disgusting. I mean, that's just pure power. I don't know if anybody in welterweight right now can defeat that. Definitely not the champion.
For a little backup, Khamzat Chimaev is a fighter out of Chechnya, which is a region of Russia. He has only 2 decision wins, which are against the legendary Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns. That was out the welterweight division.
Prime Kamaru Usman, might I add.
But he had to move up due to weight cut issues, so he recently fought Robert Whittaker at middleweight, the number 3 contender, former number 3 contender, which is the number 3 contender is now Khamzat. And it was just dominant, and he's dominated most opponents. He just ragdolls them with his wrestling. He has the combat sambo skills that I was talking about earlier, and it's a promising fighter. And if he got that belt, I honestly do not see him losing.
I feel like Whittaker is the threshold guardian. Once you beat Whittaker in middleweight, then you go for the title after that. I feel like no matter who you are, if you're skilled enough to beat Whittaker, especially by submission like that, by brutal submission, it makes sense to send him for the belt next.
Yeah, and I would like to see that. I know people were talking about Sean Strickland being promised his rematch with Dricus du Plessis, the current middleweight champion, but I think the fans would like to see Khamzat because he takes that wrestling and makes it entertaining.
Yeah, I'm kind of past Strickland. I mean, DDP clearly showed that he can swing with him and he can win the fight by wrestling him, so... I think Strickland's got some more proving to do before we send him on.
I would like to see that as well, but if Khamzat can get his health issues under control and make weight and stop having to move up weight classes, I see him finding a lot of success in middleweight.
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
Yeah, and thank you for your time, James.
Happy to be here.
Make sure to follow us on social media at the Ultimate Fighting Podcast. There are new episodes every week. Subscribe on YouTube, same username. And we'll see you next time.
See you later. Legendary. Let's go.